Boom! Welcome into Sports Bet Betting Insight today, Thursday, November 3rd. Big game breakdown, the doubleheader on TNT, Celtics, Cavs, Thunder, and the Warriors. Big game breakdown. We continue because it's Thursday, college football. Arkansas and Florida, Bama, LSU, Nebraska, and Ohio State. The curse is over. 1908, the Cubs rally down 3-1. One of the best games you're ever going to see. I can't wait to see the ratings. How many people watch this? The game had everything, Teddy. And as Rizzo said after the game, it was the best rain delay of all time.
I don't even know where to start.
Oh.
I really don't even know where to start. Let's start with the fact that this was not a good result for the house, being that this is a betting show.
Yep.
Ton of Cubs money, ton of over money for Game 7. There was certainly a fair bit of Cubs futures money that got paid off with last night's win. So not what the house was looking for, although in the bottom of the 10th was a run line killer. Oh, my goodness. Carl Edwards, 2 outs and nobody on. But it was the same story in the, was it the 8th?
Yep.
I mean, another run line killer there with Chapman. But where do we start, Paul? You want to start by ripping the managers?
Well, we've been watching, obviously, baseball a long time, and we love sports. What the hell ever happened to waiting till the pitcher got in trouble? Not once, but twice, Madden took out Hendricks and Lester with a guy on first and 2 outs. It doesn't make any... Wait till the guy gets in trouble!
Well, yeah, 100%. And, I mean, both times Madden put Lester in a runners-on, high-leverage situation instead of a nobody-on, nobody-out like he's used to. And did the exact same thing with Chapman with 2 outs and a runner-on. And both situations, it was Hendricks, it was a cheap walk. He should have had strike 3. And all of a sudden he's pulled. And with Lester was the infield single with 2 outs and a runner-on off the cheap hit. And then, of course, Chapman didn't have anything, I guess he shouldn't have used him last night, eh?
No kidding.
That's what we were talking about on yesterday's show. I mean, what did we do? Kipnis scoring on the wild pitch. Rajai Davis, his first home run since August. Do we talk about the fact that Javi Baez was going to get run out of Chicago? I mean, after those two, if that botched double play ball would have led to an Indians rally and a Cubs loss, he would have been a pariah in Chicago, every bit as bad as Bill Buckner in Boston. Yep. Instead, he becomes the second youngest player in World Series history to homer in a winner-take-all game behind Mickey Mantle. And you have David Ross, who botches the wild pitch and then comes through with the home run. I mean, there's so much to talk about in this game. Insane. Absolutely insane.
How about the co-MVP of the NLCS not being able to do anything with a breaking ball? And remember, the Cubs then had the go-ahead run on third with 1 out with Hayward, and Baez bunted with 2 strikes, and he couldn't get it down?
Baez had a rough series.
I got more. Jason Stark.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, we can go on and on about this game.
Jason Stark tweet, because, we ripped Madden, and rightfully so. When Chapman came in the 8th inning, he threw 19 fastballs. Only 4 were 100 miles an hour. The pitch that Davis hit out to tie the game was 97 miles an hour. I can't believe you brought him back in the 9th and he retired the side. I couldn't believe that. How about this? Kluber and Miller gave up more runs in Game 7 than they allowed in the entire postseason. Let's go back to let's start with Francona. I mean, you could tell early on Kluber had nothing.
No, and of course he did. I mean, he's pitching on 3 days rest again. Pitching on short rest again for the second time in the series to do so already. And when I was shocked that Kluber went out in the 5th, to give up that home run. And at 4-1, I thought that game was over. After Baez hit that home run, he was clearly gassed. He had such a heavy postseason workload. But you're right. Kluber got hit. Miller got hit. Shaw got hit. Those were the, you live and die with you dance with the guys that brung you. And all 3 of those guys brought Cleveland to Game 7. All 3 of those guys, unfortunately, for Indians backers, came up very, very short in the most critical situation.
I thought you made a good point yesterday on the show when you said, well, hell, I mean, look what the Red Sox had to do. It's not going to be easy. They were down 0-3 against the Yankees and then rallied to win that series and won the World Series. So the Cubs become the first team since '85 to rally down 3-1. They also become the first team since the '79 Pirates to win 6 and 7 on the road, Teddy. And Cleveland, remember all the talk, Cleveland was 3-1, we come back. How does it feel now, Cleveland? How the baseball team did it?
Yeah, well, and of course the Indians fans, the second time they've lost a 7-game series in the modern era. You know, the one against the Marlins with Al Leiter in Game 7 stands out to me. But, you know, that Indian team was the better of these two teams. Last night, or the 2016 Indians, sorry, they weren't better than the Cubs. Nobody was better.
When the Cubs won the World Series in 1908, there were 6,000 fans at the game. How about that? And one more, too. I got to rip the Cleveland fans. How about all the Cub fans taking over that stadium? How do you sell your tickets, winner take all, Game 7, and you haven't won since 1948? That's unacceptable. I don't want to hear about get the payday and get out of here. That's why you have the tickets. Why do you sell them to Cubs fans? Ridiculous.
No, you don't. There are plenty of guys that have tickets to resell them for games like this one. And Cubs fans will pay more money than Indians fans.
Come on.
That's the truth of it.
All right, well, wild. Wild game.
That was a wild game.
Oh,
that was an
wow.
insane epic. And to all of you Cubs fans out there, and I know there are plenty of you out there, congratulations. It's been a long time coming. Now you can die in peace.
Well, one more. What was going to happen if the rain, because that radar looked ugly.
It did.
You're going to come back the next day.
I can't even imagine what was going to happen.
Oh, mercy. All right, to bad beats. Rolling on. Another overtime loser, Teddy. This happens every night in the NBA, it seems like.
Yeah, another day, another dog that loses an OT and fails to cover. I mean, the Pelicans, they were trying to get off the schneid. They gave Memphis everything they could handle after Gentry went nuts on them following the home loss the previous night to Milwaukee. They were 6-point dogs. They were bet down to 5. They go to OT tied at 75. Final score, they lost by 6, of course, failing to cover the number despite scoring the last 4 points of that OT session.
The Hawks were a bad bet, laying double digits at home. Luke Walton can coach. Lakers with the outright win.
Well, I mean, the Lakers couldn't miss. They were playing one-on-one basketball all night. 24 assists on 48 made baskets. Just to compare that, Atlanta had 30 assists on 41 made hoops. But they were hitting shots all night, 54% from the floor, 90% from the free throw line. And that's on the second of back-to-backs. That being said, Walton didn't play anybody for more than 31 minutes in either game. He used his bench liberally. There was a 10-man rotation last night, a 12-man rotation the night before. And, of course, the total got bet down from 209 to 205, another bad bet. Atlanta came into the game with that number 1 ranked defense. They were 12-point chalk. They got bet up. L.A. wins outright, 123-116, although I will take the under on the number of games that Atlanta scores 116 and doesn't cover the spread again this year.
Yep, and how about bad for the books? A big move with this Mavs game under. Never had a chance.
Yeah, I mean, the Jazz are playing great defense right now. That total got bet down a good 4 or 5 points, 189.5. There were 186s, 185.5s at tip-off, and they could have played 5 quarters. Would have struggled to get there. That Utah defense has been really, really good so far. Something to keep your eye on in early season NBA.
Yes, and we'll get to big game breakdown coming up next. Hey, how about Theo Epstein? He wins in Boston and Chicago. Think that guy's going in the Hall of Fame? Oh, my God.
He's a god to those people.
How many?
Literally.
What do you think now? How many? This is funny now that we're talking about this. You think the Cubs can rattle a few off now?
In theory, though, I don't know if they're ever going to have better pitching than they had this year.
Okay.
It's not going to be easy for them to get to put together the kind of staff. When you think about what Lester did at the tail end of, or maybe not the tail end of his career, but towards the end of his career. Hendricks basically coming out of nowhere to lead the NL in ERA.
Yeah.
Jake Arrieta pitching at an ace level for, the entirety of the campaign. Lackey in one of his last seasons. I mean, I just don't know that it's going to be easy for the Cubs to replicate the pitching they had this season, but we're talking about a very, very young and talented lineup. And with that lineup, they're going to be in contention for the indefinite future. So are the Indians, because let's not forget, Cleveland's going to get 2/3 of that elite pitching staff back for next season. And that's, with Lindor and some of the young talent they have. Would you be shocked to see a rematch next year? I wouldn't.
No. Cubs should become the Yankees and spend a ton of money. Why not? The fans deserved it. They should just spend and go crazy in the offseason. Up next.
Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Go crazy. That one's for Harry. All right, up next, we got big game breakdown. We'll start with the doubleheader on TNT coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown, as always. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. The doubleheader on TNT tonight. Game 1, Celtics hit the road to take on the Cavs. Cavs 8.5, 210 the total. Look at the Celtics on the road last year. Stevens can really coach them up. At Cleveland, they were getting 7, won the game. Also +8, they got blown out in that one. But big dogs at Golden State and dogs at OKC, they won 3 of the 4 games. And now, listen, nice job beating the Bulls last night, Teddy. But no Horford, no Smart. They are shorthanded here.
Well, I mean, Smart played 34 minutes in his season debut off the bench after missing that first week with injury. But Kelly Olynyk out already. Jay Crowder got hurt against Chicago last night. You want to check his status before tonight's game. But, you know, Horford with a concussion now. It's a team playing their first set of back-to-backs off a win on the road, shorthanded. And that's certainly not a great situation, especially when you look at some of the turnaround issues off of last night's game, which went down to the final minute. I mean, Avery Bradley goes 38, Isaiah Thomas goes 35 minutes in that contest, leaving neither guy particularly fresh this evening.
Yep, thanks for the correction there. We told you Tuesday on Sportsbet, Kyrie Irving would go right through the Rockets, 32 points in 34 minutes. And LeBron's liking this role. Again, he's hyping him up for the MVP. We read that quote the other day. After the game, he said about Kyrie, he's growing every day, only 24 years old. He's special. And look at this. Kevin Love with 24. This is the big 3 they envisioned when they got this unit together.
Well, yeah. I mean, they racked up 128 points against Houston. And that was in a game where LeBron James only took 12 shots and 10 free throw attempts. Now they're number 2 in the NBA in offensive efficiency early on. Though I wonder about the whole city of Cleveland today. Is there a hangover on Thursday? Because that was a crazy and long Game 7 in the World Series last night. I wonder about laying points with the Cavs this evening. I know I don't want Boston in this particular spot, but from a Cleveland standpoint, that's a concern for me. It really is.
You saw the players in the suite. Looked like they were drinking. That certainly was a late night. All right, game number 2. This is good. LiveOddsSportsBookReview.com. OKC and Golden State. The Warriors 11.5. 226.5 the total. Playoff revenge, yes, but maybe the worst scheduling spot you're going to see all season. OKC was off the game last night in LA against the Clippers. Maybe Golden State found something against Portland. They beat them on the boards by 13, and they had 14 steals, Teddy.
Yeah, they sure did. And that being said, it might have just been one of those fluky games. I mean, Ian Clark comes off the bench and gets hot. He scored 22 on 8 of 8 shooting, 3 of 3 from beyond the arc in 25 minutes. Ian Clark isn't going to have that many games like that. And, I mean, Golden State, they've got solid backcourt depth. You know, you got Iggy, you got Livingston, you got Clark coming off the bench. But their front court depth is a big concern for me. It's been weak. And that's going to create matchup problems against the Oklahoma City Bangers inside. I mean, we've talked multiple times about how big and physical and how dominant OKC is on the glass. That hasn't changed, even with the Thunder on the second night of back-to-backs.
I give you credit. You said it before the season. They would struggle to start. They blew out Portland. But have you seen Klay Thompson's numbers, what he's shooting from 3? Horrendous.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's only one basketball. And I look at Golden State in general right now as a one-way team for me, especially in this point spread range. But I'm not looking to back the Warriors. I think they are an overvalued commodity. And, you know, when you have them power rated 3, 4, 5 points higher than anyone else in the NBA or anyone else other than the Cavs, in my mind, that's a little bit too high for Golden State right now. Maybe come April, but not in November.
Yeah, a fabulous doubleheader. That's why we snuck it in. We'll go heavy, though, Thursday with college football the rest of the way. Let's start with college football here as we round it out in this segment. LiveOddsSportsBookReview.com. Florida hits the road to take on Arkansas. Florida 5.5, 47 the total. McElwain and the Gators absolutely make the playoffs if they win out. Are they good enough to be in the conversation? Schedule rank. You look at the Sagarin ratings. Arkansas 6, Florida 66.
Yeah, I mean, the Razorbacks have played 4 teams. You know, Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Ole Miss. Better than any team that Florida has played this season. And you look at the Gators, I mean, they've got some pretty solid numbers when you look at their defense in particular. But, I mean, what good balanced offenses have they faced this season? I mean, Tennessee is the only one that I can see, and Tennessee gashed them pretty good. Arkansas with a legitimate balanced offense. And, I mean, the Gators talk about the playoffs. Yeah, if they win out, they make the playoffs. Florida's not going to win out. Florida might not win this game. You know, for me, talking about Florida and the playoffs, it's like there's such a disconnect between the two. They're not getting there, even if the path is open for them to do so.
Yeah. My God, what's that line if they play Bam on a neutral? 3 touchdowns at least?
Oh. I would think so.
Yeah. Now, how does Arkansas respond? They were blown out and embarrassed against Auburn last week before the bye. They were gassed. Now they try to come in fresher, but did they lose confidence? Defensive coordinator Russ Smith, quote, after performance like that, you've got to evaluate everything A to Z. We've got to find ways to get better, to get guys in better spots. That starts with the position they line up in, not even by scheme. We're going to use the bye week to take a look at that, especially in our front seven, see if we can address some of the concerns in the run game, end quote. Yeah, Auburn was running the zone read option, and they dropped 50 on them.
Yeah, I mean, we remember talking about that game prior to that week. That was 2 weeks ago, saying, yeah, well, worry about Arkansas, the potential for them being gassed after the wild games against Alabama and Ole Miss in the previous 2 weeks. And they were. They just got blitzkrieged. You know, they were never in it, and that was that. But you have the bye to regroup. You have a team that moves the football. You know, their offense has been real good. Austin Allen's been a guy I've liked all year. More than 2,000 yards, 18 touchdown passes, despite facing that tough schedule. And, you know, the early word on him is he's going to be a guy who's going to the NFL the first or the second day of the draft. He's not going to be a late-round guy. Now, a knee injury did cause him to miss some practice time during the bye, but Austin Allen has been upgraded to probable for Arkansas, and I would expect if he plays, we're going to see a fair bit of Hogs money between now and kickoff.
Yes, up next, the 2 monster matchups, Alabama, LSU in prime time, and Nebraska and Ohio State, plus the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, we roll on SportsBit. Big game breakdown continues. The monster matchup Saturday night. Alabama and Baton Rouge to take on LSU. Bama 7.5, 45.5 the total. Both teams off the bye, and they're fresh. So this could be the most physical game of the season coming up. But the big story's been Alabama and what they've done to Leonard Fournette. 110 yards in 40 attempts career against Bama. 18-yard run last year. All his other 18 other carries, only 13 yards, which puts a lot of pressure on a quarterback, Teddy.
Well, it sure does. I mean, the bottom line, there's so many different bottom lines going up against Alabama. But, I mean, it's an LSU team that's proven they can bang with anyone. But banging hasn't been good enough against Alabama. We're talking about a game that, as you mentioned, could be the most physical game played in college football all year. And when you talk about LSU, that they haven't been able to get Fournette untracked against Alabama, no one's been able to run the football against Alabama. So now, all of a sudden, you're talking about a lot of pressure on the quarterback in Danny Etling. He's been okay versus weak opponents. Now he really has to step up in class. And you're talking about a Purdue transfer in Etling, you know, who, do you trust him against Alabama's defense? Not so much. I mean, LSU hasn't left campus since Les Miles was fired in late September. You know, the team's built some good chemistry. They're 3-0 straight up and 3-0 against the spread since Orgeron took over. They scored 38+ in all 3 games after the offense couldn't move the ball at all against Auburn and Wisconsin. But that 3-0 straight up against the spread, well, it came against Missouri, who stinks, Southern Miss, who doesn't play defense, and Ole Miss, who's in the midst of a pretty nasty collapse. None of those compare to Alabama's defense, not even close.
You make a mistake, you're going to get buried. Athletes everywhere. We told you about this streak about the last month on SportsBit. 5 interception returns for touchdowns, 4 fumble returns, 2 punt returns, at least 1 touchdown from the defense or special teams in every game. It's over 20 since last October. That's why they're 6-2 ATS, 2 non-covers. Ole Miss coming through the back door and only beating Kentucky by 28, Teddy. You make a mistake, they're going to run you out.
That's what Alabama does. I mean, again, you're talking about a team with a Frosh QB in Alabama, and you say, oh my goodness, you know, this price tag's pretty high. But when you have a squad like Alabama that scores on offense, that scores on defense, that scores on special teams every single week, that has the elite receiver corps. I've loved this LSU team since Orgeron took over. They made me money. Not this week. I know maybe you're supposed to take LSU, but if I'm playing, I'm laying.
There it is. Very good. Last game, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Nebraska, another tough road game at Ohio State. Buckeyes 17-52 the total. Dream crusher game. if either team sweeps out, likely in the playoffs, but the loser here is done. Urban Meyer, what's been the problem on offense and ATS, Teddy? He certainly misses Tom Herman.
Yeah, he keeps having the dream that Herman is offensive coordinator because really, you can count the number of genuinely good Ohio State offensive games since Tom Herman left for Houston, probably on one hand. I mean, they move the ball. They've got great talent. I've not been impressed with them schematically, and certainly that was the case last week. They didn't score enough against Northwestern to cover the point spread, even if they had pulled the shutout. Remember, this team started 4-0 against the spread. They beat Rutgers 58-0. Well, that was their last cover. The week after Oklahoma was their last point spread cover. They're 0-4 ATS since, and the last 2 weeks, they've lost against the spread by 3 touchdowns each time. So you ask yourself now, is this team valued correctly for November? They weren't valued right in September, 4-0. They weren't valued right in October, 0-4. Are they valued right now as a 17-point chalk against Nebraska? That's the key question in my mind.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. Now, we're supposed to like this, getting all these points as a road dog with a senior quarterback, but what do we do with Armstrong? When you look at the numbers, his stats have gotten worse.
They sure have, you know. I mean, that's comparable. But as a sophomore, 53% completions, a passer rating of 133. As a junior, 55%, a passer rating of 128, a couple more interceptions. As a senior, a completion rating of 53, a pass rating of 131. He's just the same guy. He hasn't gotten better, and there's one thing you don't want to do against Ohio State. You don't want to play from behind against the Buckeyes. That's the number 3 team in the nation in pass efficiency defense. They have 12 interceptions, and at times, Armstrong has shown a penchant for throwing the ball into traffic. Those jump ball situations have been real good for Ohio State. And of course, that Nebraska defense, you know, they allowed 223 yards on the ground last week against a Badger running game that just hadn't been finding a whole lot of holes lately. So I've got concerns about Nebraska on both sides of the football in this one.
Boy, the conference didn't do them any favors with this schedule. That is brutal, back-to-back in Madison and taking on the Buckeyes. All right, money time, play of the day. Pig Suey, where are we going?
Well, we've used them before as home dogs. We cashed a ticket with Arkansas against Ole Miss in the game they won outright. Let's go back to the well one more time with the Hog Suey, number 370, Arkansas plus 5.5. And this is one you want to bet sooner, not later. I do expect this line to go down perhaps as early as today.
Yes. All right. We're back tomorrow. Weekend preview. We'll run through the NFL, all the NBA games. Busy show coming up. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.